Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to this live stream. Good afternoon for all my friends in Europe, and good morning or evening for everyone else around in the world. Leave a quick flag of your country in the chat below so I can know who am I talking with. Always cool to see. So to get a better understanding of what we are going to talk about today in the live stream, I made my homework, made a little PowerPoint presentation so you can follow along. So the first 10 minutes, I would like to do a Q&A from some of the questions we had on Instagram. I made a post for some questions related to fitness and nutrition and health. Also to let people come into the stream, because it always takes a little bit of time, and I think it's a better idea. And then I will talk about the preliminary data from the Hybrid 2.0 project. So most likely that's why you're here. We are going to talk about how many people were inscribed, how many people did the pre-tests and so on, and also a little bit of data from the pre-test that I already could gather. Obviously, the project is still ongoing, so it is not finished yet. I think it will finish in 3 to 4 weeks. So then I will definitely make a nice video explaining all the data and the performance results of this study. And then afterwards, we will go through all the questions that you now already can pop up in the chat. Let me see if I can see the chat here. So if you have a question also related to whatever I'm going to say during this whole stream, just feel free, put it in, and then I can also answer that, right? So really nice. So let's get started. So first one, just a little bit of a joke. Some person said, "I want to book an online course to become a wod-scientist." Love that word, wod-scientist. No, but actually, in all interest, is there any interest from you guys that we make some kind of a course to become some kind of an affiliation to wod-science, for example, that we make not just a seminar or something, but actually like a course where we deep dive into the physiology of functional fitness that would get along with some accreditation and potentially also some points to get for the CrossFit level 4 and 3. So this is something we're thinking about. I'm not sure there's a lot of interest for this, but obviously this is something we could create where you have like a whole curriculum of whatever 5 to 10 courses or 1 hour courses, lectures, and then you also do an exam and so on and so forth. So something that we have been pondering about. If you're interested in this, or when you talk, there's a good idea, put it in the chat below so we know, or send us an email. Definitely also useful. That's just a joke, obviously. Let me get it for first question. I thought it was a really good one, just to get into the groove. Is carb cycling a thing, right? Like carbohydrate periodization, and how can it be used or applied for people training in Hyrox or CrossFit as well, I guess, right? Although Hyrox could be maybe a bit more applicable here. So I made actually a video about fasted training not so long ago, and there I explained that although if you for example take out carbohydrates out of your breakfast, right? So you start the training fasted. That's an interesting idea that it will lead to that in a way that the body is better able to use fats as a fuel source, certainly at sub-maximal intensity. So think about not like Fran intensity, but just a very easy EMOM or something that like a zone 2 session. Your body will be kind of pushed to use the fats more instead of the carbohydrates at sub-maximal intensities, but not at high intensities. Obviously, if you go super hard, Fran, as I said, Cindy or Hyrox workout, you will be burning 95 to 100% of carbohydrates because it's the most efficient fuel source. Certainly when you're not keto adapted, that's maybe something else. So there's no real evidence to do fasted training or carbohydrate periodization if you do it like gently, meaning you wake up, you don't eat breakfast, and then you go for a run, for example. There's no performance benefits to this. You burn more fat, but doesn't mean you also perform better. But that doesn't mean it's completely useless, because if you push the system a little bit more, and this is what we call sleep low, it actually has been coined by John Hawley not so long ago, I think 5 to 8 years ago. And what did you do? What do you do there? And that might be a bit more interesting for this whole carbohydrate periodization idea. Is you start the exercise. right? With fully repleted glycogen stores. So you start with just normal carbohydrate diet and you're fully repleted, so full of, let's say, energy. And then you do a high intensity interval session on the bike, or you do a CrossFit session, high rock session, something high intensity, pretty short. So you will drain your glycogen stores. And then the magic comes, you start, so you don't eat carbohydrates afterwards. So you don't replenish your glycogen stores. You drink a protein shake, a whey shake, something along those lines. You go to bed, and then the next day you do your zone 2 session, low intensity, 1 hour, 2 hour session. And that has been shown to, at least on the short term, and in a couple of studies, shown to improve performance. Here you see well-trained runners, or relatively well-trained runners, had to do a 10K running time trial, right? And they only improved if they did the sleep low paradigm compared to the control group, who did the same training, but they just always ate this like a high amount of carbohydrates. Importantly, both groups ate the same amount of total carbohydrates, right? We call this the sleep low. There's quite some evidence now, also more and more popping up, that this could, like, related to periodization work. Certainly for high rockers, it could be something to play with, to boost your aerobic metabolism, to boost your mitochondria in the off season specifically. All right, so something to think about, and not really tested in high rockers, obviously, but in the endurance world there is some decent evidence. Cool. Then second question before we go on to most of the talking about the Hybrid 2.0 study. I thought it was a very intriguing and good question as well, that pops up a lot actually, is how to best track your volume or movements for CrossFit. That's very, very, very important, because CrossFit is, I'm not saying it's random, but it's very varied. You have all the different movements. It's also not so easy to program a good structured training program for CrossFit. It's actually much easier for Hyrox, but that's another note. So it's very important to think about, okay, how am I thinking about the training load of my training? Because obviously how hard it is over time, and also how to implement, let's say, progressive overload in your training. And one of the things we do, and what I could maybe tell you that you could also do, is using something that is also pretty well established in literature. It's called TRIMP, or training impulse. And what we do, we actually do it very old school with spreadsheets, because there's no software available yet, at least we didn't encounter it. Let me know in the chat if there is actually something along those lines. But at least we have never seen it, is that you do the amount of the RPE. You make a ratio of the RPE, which is like how hard a session felt, from 1 to 10. 10 is Fran, super hard, an open workout. 1 is laying in your bed. And then you multiply that times the time you did that session. All right. And then you can have, for every modality in CrossFit, strength, warm-up, accessory, conditioning, and so on, you can then have TRIMP throughout the time. And that's also actually how we design our studies, or how we design our own training plans that you can sign up to, is that we then in this way have some kind of a progressive overload. If you want to go really geeky, you can then also make a separate tab, for example, or column with the amount of reps you do in each movements. For example, I'm not maybe not each movement, but for example, gymnastics, how many pull-ups you did that week, how many chest to bar pull-ups, ring muscle ups, handstand push-ups, or something that is pretty hard on the body. This you could also then add, and then also based on that do a progressive overload. It's not that easy, I would say, and it's all not that straightforward, but because it could be that you do, let's say, the movements at a lower intensity. All right. So you do maybe a lot of movements, a lot of whatever pull-ups, or even strict pull-ups, or muscle-ups, but you do them at a pretty low intensity, for example, 4 or 5 per minute in EMOM. That would have less load on your body, obviously, than when you do the same reps, maybe, or also 15 reps, but at a very high intensity. Think about thrusters in Fran, or something along those lines. Something to think about. And to be honest, we also have no clear-cut answer to this, but I think shrimp is some kind of a good idea to do it. All right, cool to see already people from Italy and Sweden. Really cool, really cool. Thank you for adding this to the chat. All right, so really nice. Let's go to actually the main meat, let's say, of this video is our hybrid 2.0 programming or our project, right? Like we have been now pretty interested. I've been pretty interested in trying to optimize programming specifically for CrossFit style workouts, because there's been so much, let's say, work have been done already on strength training, how to manipulate volume of strength training to get the most gains. Let's keep it like that, right? For aesthetics, and also endurance training, triathlon, and so on. Marathon running, how much you have to increase, what kind of mileages do you have to do, and so on and so forth. But in CrossFit, there's obviously very little known, certainly related to programming. And I think it's a very important part. I mean, when I went to my gyms, always my CrossFit gyms, I was always really worried about the programming, because I thought sometimes it was suboptimal, and this decreased my, let's say, sensations of fun during CrossFit. So I'm really intrigued by this. So what did we do? I mean, many of you will already know is you do you have two groups, right? We call this commercial CrossFit, where you go into the gym, you do 30 minutes or 25 minutes of mostly strength compound exercises, followed by a high intensity workout. Right, so that's what we call commercial CrossFit, and then Group B would be would do the exact same thing, but they would just do one day they would do 2 metcons in a row, nothing else, and then the next day they do 2 let's say compound lifts in a row. All right, and then they always switch up 4 times per week for an X amount of weeks. And we showed exactly 1 year ago that if you do this the same, but you separate them by a week, not by a day, by a week, then you actually get better improvements in CrossFit performance, which is not easy to show. I will get to that in a second. So cool, right? So now we're going to do the same, which a little bit more practical, I would say, meaning that, I mean, who's going to separate them by a week? I mean, you can do it, but it's pretty extreme. Actually, we have a program we call this hybrid season, and people are training like that, and actually that's our most popular program. So I do think it works, but maybe even more optimal would be to separate them by a day, because previous research in rugby players has shown that if you separate strength and conditioning by 6 hours or 24 hours, something in between that, you have almost no interference effect between strength and conditioning. Cool. So that shows us that likely 1 day is also sufficient. Cool. So a little bit of data I thought it was very interesting to share and also to look at is what we have here is our participants. And one of the cool things about wod-science and why I'm still really much into it is that we are able to catch a lot of eyeballs. Right, so we have a lot of people who watch our content, which is really cool, and thank you for that. But if we then try to set something up like this, we also have a lot of interest in it. And you saw here are the numbers. You see the signups. 576 people have kind of signed up into our landing page. It's not real signing up, but I mean, they were interested, right? And then we had them sign up specifically towards 2 groups, Group A and Group B. They were randomly assigned. So there was already a little bit of dropout. 205 people signed up actually to do or to get the programming of the Group A. That's the 205 on the left side. And then 244 did on the Group B, or the hybrid style training, right? And then on the, you see here the bottom one is 113 people actually from the A group did their pre-testing, did all the tests during the pre-test. I will get to what the tests exactly are, but that's, I mean, very substantial, obviously. And then we have also the B group, that's going to be 142 people. So you have a little bit of a dropout. It makes sense, right? Like you say, hey, you want to get into a study, but then at the end, not everyone is actually going to do the study and also doing the pre-tests. So, but still, if you think about this from a scientific perspective, 100 to 150 people per group is massive, is way more than what you usually see in exercise science studies. So that's why it's also pretty interesting, I think. Good. So let's look at some data, right? Let's look at some data, and I will get to the tests as well. Let's look first at some data. Here we are. So the age of the people is a little bit male, women and men. On the left side, women, and then on the right side, the men. You have around 32 years old for both groups. Obviously, there's no significance here. By the way, this is not all the data, not all the 113 and 142 people. This is not all included, but I mean, it gives you a rough overview. And then for the males, they were a little bit older. I have to look at this a little bit more in detail. If there would be a significance between the females and the males in age, that would be quite interesting. But you also already see that on a percentage base, way more men sign up to these studies than women, unfortunately. All right. So, I mean, if I have to guess, it's going to be 30% women and 70% males. I mean, there's not much we can do about that, but it's a bit annoying, obviously, because you have less power than in your female group. Yeah. So still, it will be enough power, statistical power. So no problem there. But yeah, that's anthropometrics, and then that's something really cool. So one of the problems I think with exercise sciences is that if you do a study, right, whatever study, and you test people in a lab, for example, here in Zurich, you test 15 people in a lab before and after an intervention of studies, right, of exercise. Then you're going to have a very homogeneous cohort, because, for example, these will all be Swiss people or close to Swiss people, right? I mean, there will be less genetic variability. With this study, look at the amount of people from all across the globe. You see all the flags here, which is super cool, right? This means that you have a much more heterogeneous sample size, and this would have much higher ecological validity. I mean, that's one of the major benefits, in my opinion, of doing such a remote, open study. But that's on the side. Then we also have height for the women, a bit like one I think 1 meter 60, and then for the males 1 meter 80. So very average, normal statues. But obviously you're gonna have no differences between the groups, and that's kind of the major point here, that we don't have differences between the commercial group and the hybrid group before they actually start the exercise. And that is quite logical. That's kind of the power of numbers. The more people you have in the group, the lesser the chance is that they actually are going to be different on average. And then you have also the weight. The weight here, also no differences between the groups. You see 64 kilograms on average for the women, and for the males we have around 85 kilos. All right, so very average, normal population weights, I would say. Cool. So let us go through some of the tests, right? I mean, no, maybe the last one, sorry, is going to be experience. That's very important, I think. So what is cool, again, about this study is that most of the people who follow wod-science and are kind of into functional fitness, CrossFit, Hyrox, and all that cool stuff, they are pretty experienced already. All right. And certainly people who want to do this study, maybe if you're watching this, obviously you are going to be interested in the sport, and probably have done the sport already. And you see here 6 to 7 years of CrossFit or Hyrox or functional fitness experience they have on average, right? You see people, some real OGs with 15 years of experience. That's even more than me. That's really when the sport started. Very cool. And then some people obviously with much less. So there is a big discrepancy here, like a real big range. And that is cool why we have the big data set later on. Hopefully when everyone has done the post-testing, we can correlate the experience towards the improvement in performance. It could be that if you are doing already 15 years CrossFit, that your gains on either group or either modality is going to be less, let's say, I don't know, obviously, than the ones that have been doing CrossFit for a year. That's something I would hypothesize, but I'm not 100% sure about this. But this we can probably get to that data when we have the data in, let's say, a good month. All right. So let's talk about the tests. I mean, I'm not going to go over all the tests here. I mean, I will explain them. Many of you probably know them as well. But what we have here is basically strength, right? So these are from the pre-testing. So from a couple, like almost a month ago, we did the pre-tests, and one of the tests was a 1RM back squat and a 1RM clean and jerk. These were all, let's say, separated throughout the week, so interspersed in the week. And again, this shows that we have a pretty decent and pretty advanced cohort, right? This is in kilograms. They have approximately 140. This is men and women together, by the way, which is obviously statistically doesn't make much sense, but just to show you the overall data set. And yeah, like they have a decent back squat. Like these are not beginner athlete at all, right? Certainly on such a big set. So that's I think very useful for this overall study. And the clean and jerk is it's going to be close to 100 kilograms, probably like 80, approximately 80 for the women. And then you see here the cohort of women, they kind of separate, like pool together, and then the males have higher. Probably these guys are I didn't manipulate anything about the data yet. So here these are probably outliers because they put their weight in pounds, right? And that's why we have to look in very close detail to that data. I mean, it's highly unlikely that these people had a 300 kilogram back squat, right? It's rather 300 pounds. But we have to look at that, and that's why, obviously you have to manipulate and look at the data very closely. But yeah, you see here, very nice that there is also a big range, that people are obviously a lot stronger or less strong, and it would be very interesting to see, based on experience and how many years they trained, if this actually could influence the improvement in performance. So the goal is obviously to see if the commercial versus the hybrid group would improve more. And then we got a cool test. One of the first tests we did, that you can all, if you haven't done this, if you actually are not in the hybrid study, but you want to you want to also do this. One of the first tests we did was an AMRAP of 7 minutes of burpees. Right, so 7 minutes of burpees, just all out as hard as you can, straight into, without any rest, into a 1,000-meter row. Okay, and that's a really good test also for in your own CrossFit gym, or if you're a gym owner or a coach, to just get people going. And it's a very good endurance test that has the CrossFit modality. And yeah, you see here there's approximately 100 reps they have on average. So that's a very specific test. And then I also looked at, again, no differences between groups, very good. And the 1,000-meter row was approximately for the males sub 4, just sub 4, like 3:55 or something. Okay, so decent conditioning and I would say advanced, on average, advanced athletes, right? And then you have the open 14.4 open workout. It's like an AMRAP of 14 minutes, if I'm correct, with several like pretty high skill movements. And if you're really good, you can get through one round. Actually, I didn't get through one round, so I think you have to be like almost elite to get through the one round. But here you see as well, no difference between groups, and yeah, that's a very CrossFit specific test in the CrossFit time domain, 14 minutes, like exactly how it is usually in the opens, right? And then that's basically most of the data. Then we also had other tests which included some strength. So we had a CrossFit total. So that included the 1RM back squat, also deadlift and press. And we had then the AMRAP 7 minutes of burpees. We had also had the CrossFit functional fitness or the wod-science functional fitness test. I talked about this test when I talk about what we did at Adidas headquarters. It's basically an exercise test to exhaustion using functional movements. All right, I didn't include it here. I mean, it would be a little bit too much, but also that test is very specific to CrossFit, and it would be very interesting to see how people advance here. So the goal with our testing week is to test, first of all, I mean, our major idea was test most of the time domains. One test I forgot to say was also a power test, where they did 2159 of deadlifts and calories on the bike. So very short, right? So we have a strength test, which is a short time domain. We have a power test, which is like 2159 deadlifts and biking. Then we have a middle test, I would say, the AMRAP 7 minutes of burpees and rowing, as well as a more gymnastic bias test, which is the open workout. And then like a long exercise test to exhaustion, which is the functional fitness test to exhaustion. You see, so we try to have all the different time domains and not like, for example, the CrossFit Open. I think that's one of the criticisms I usually have in the CrossFit Open, is that they always have the same time domains. Okay, they can have different movements, and you test different movement and sometimes strength, although not that much. Here we try to have different time domains and see, for example, that our hybrid approach is maybe better in improving certain time domains. That could also be the case, right? We don't know, obviously. So that's kind of the idea what we have here. So that's basically a little bit of the pre-testing. Please stay tuned for the actual data that we get, hopefully in approximately 5 weeks, because it takes some time to analyze this stuff. Obviously, it's a big data set. And then before we go on, please leave a quick like on this video. It really helps the algorithm to push out these live streams more. So take 2 seconds of your time and like this video. Really cool if you would do that. And secondly, I want to thank Klaus as well as Timo for helping me out in the programming, because obviously there's a lot of programming that goes into this, and I think that I can never do this alone. I need some let's say sports scientists. They are both sports scientists and help me a lot with the programming and thinking about the structure, also the structure of the test week and so on, which is obviously super important. Then there was a question in the chat that I want to answer because it was very close to exactly what we have here. Yes, by the way, I use GraphPod. Why not? I mean, it's a great tool actually. But one of the questions was, I'm not sure, yeah, it's still there. Is there an integral difference between the two groups in terms of load, volume, and type of watts, right? Or is it just a difference in timing of the workouts? Very good question. Crucial question. And the thing is, it's the latter, meaning that they are exactly the same workouts, exactly the same strength, everything, metcons and so on is the same, but we do have, just different timing, right? So we do 2 workouts or let's say metcons in one day, and then the next day we do 2 strength parts, and the other ones I just have it mixed. So that's, I think, the beauty of this setup is that they have the same, let's say, training and training load. Although it's not, one thing maybe to think about this, if you do 2 metcons in a row, all right, you have, the thing with that is that the second metcon, if it's not well programmed, it's likely going to be of lower intensity, okay? And that's going to be the intriguing part here. Is this lower intensity also going to contribute to lesser training effects or not? We don't know. I don't think so, but it could be. Because the same could be said about the commercial group. If you first do for example, heavy back squat session, like we do front squats and Romanian deadlifts, like that's one of the key movements we do. If you do that well, I mean, I'm following that as well, I'm pretty tired. If I then have to do a 40-minute AMRAP of wall balls, box jumps, and burpees, I also gonna be probably like decreasing my intensity, right? So that's kind of the interesting thing, and that's why I think the programming is so important. You cannot just combine everything, and you have to really think deeply about these things. So really good question, Alex. I would say. All right, so. Then I want to get a little bit more on questions that are related to this, because one of the things I didn't say yet, so we have 4 training sessions that are this kind of hybrid or commercial style training per week, but one session is zone 2. And we, zone 2 is, I mean, you have heard about this likely, it's going to be, you do a low intensity session, okay? So, and the question here is, what is the science behind mixed zone 2 workout? Mixed, he means using functional movements. Shouldn't it be just monostructural cardio to achieve the benefits of mitochondrial biogenesis in the muscles? Very good question that I actually got already a lot also in my seminars. And the straightforward answer is we don't know 100% for sure. So if you do, what we know, right, is there's been 2 studies. One study has been by Stefan Helt et al. from Düsseldorf University. And by the way, they are doing another study related to this. And what did they do? They did 4 training sessions per week for 6 weeks. And one group trained 3 out of those 4 sessions was doing functional movements, but with a heart rate monitor and slower, low intensity. All right, so they did the movements, but just way lower power production. And then the other ones, they just went balls out all the time. right? So both groups. So the zone 2 group obviously had much less training load to them. And still, the gains in performance in CrossFit, like Jackie and also strength, were the same. So even though the load was lower, the gains were the same. Our study, our project that we did last year was kind of the same, where we added, where we did the same kind of as a hybrid study, but we substituted some of the high intensity workouts for monostructural, so not functional, but monostructural workouts on the rower and on the bike and so on. And therefore, but we upped the time, the training time. So they had the same training load. Both groups had the same training load, which is different than the other study. And then we saw very clearly that also here, the zone 2 guys who added actually zone 2 and more training volume, they had the same training gains, performance gains in Jackie or other not Jackie, open style workouts, strength workouts, and also FTP, performance. All right. So what we know is that zone 2, I mean, if you want to add it, we don't know 100% sure yet how you have to add it. I would basically think about it as do best of both worlds. For example, you can program a workout where you do accumulate 250 calories on the air bike at easy intensity, RPE 3, for example, but every 2 minutes, on top of every 2 minutes, you do some functional movements, for example, hang clean and jerks, light, and some burpees, like easy pace, right? So you combine them. There is no evidence that functional movements would not improve mitochondrial biogenesis. There's just no data on this yet. I mean, there's so little data on functional fitness. So that's how I would see it. I would just add them together because as a CrossFitter, I think it's really boring to do like 2 hours of biking. No one does this, right? Like if you have a CrossFit gym, no one does this. But if you add some functional movements to rowing and so on, it might be better. Then the RPE. Yeah, so I talked about RPE already. I mean, clearly. And the question here is, looking at the scores, it seems to me that the perceived or the perceived RPE, so the perceived exertion, are all differently between people. All right. And yeah, so we have different levels of fitness, but as you say, CrossFitters might have hard time not going all out. So indeed, this is obviously the thing. So you need to get used to RPE, I would say. So if you give this to a large cohort of people, some people say, RPE doesn't make any sense to me. I always go hard, and some people say, yeah, RPE work perfectly. So that's why I think this functional fitness test to exhaustion that we programmed. I will put the link in the description if you didn't sign up yet. If you want, you can sign up to Strive. That's our software where we put all our workouts on, and you can actually see the workout. And what we do, or what we ask from the functional fitness test to exhaustion, is at every interval, so every increasing intensity interval, we ask you to put your RPE. So it should be very low in the beginning, like out of 10, let's say 2 or 3, and then it goes up until fully exhaustion at 10. Okay, so and then you can gauge better. Okay, if I'm doing an AMRAP and the coach tells me that I have to go at RPE 7, okay, this is kind of what I felt during my workout. So this should likely be a better RPE. Okay, so that's why RPE could be quite useful. All right, then maybe the last question before we end the stream is, how do you rate the results of the burpee AMRAP plus rope test? I think the results depend pretty much on the strategy. Do you somehow combine the results of burpee? Okay, so the question is, we do, I just explained, we do a burpee and then the row test, right? And the question is, it depends really a lot on your strategy. If you sandbag the burpees, you're obviously going to go much harder on the rower. That's basically kind of what happened to me when I did that test. I think it's inevitable. We're not going to put them together. We're going to treat them as separate scores. Maybe we have to discuss this actually with Timo and with Klaus, how we're going to do it. Maybe we actually put them together, but it's not going to be that straightforward to put them together, because indeed the strategy is important. But and then on the other hand, yes, but I assume as well that pre and post your strategy is going to kind of be the same. I mean, we're going to instruct the people to say, okay, try to have the same strategy. Don't go balls out on the burpees if you didn't do them before. all right? I mean, if you didn't go hard on the burpees before, think about the same strategy and try to improve both modalities in a certain extent. I mean, that's going to be your goal. Also, secondly, we actually repeated this test already during the training. So one of the major concerns I have, and also researchers have, is testing bias. Meaning that, I mean, you know that if you do an open workout, whatever workout, 25.1, and the next day you come back, you didn't gain any fitness. On the contrary, you're probably tired from the workout. You do it again, your strategy is better, and you always improve. Like the redos always work. So that's testing bias, right? Yeah, your strategy improves. So one thing to mitigate that is going to be by doing this test again in the middle of the training program. That's exactly what we did, and that's how we hope to reduce this testing bias, this effect of strategy, and rather test the improvement in fitness. Cool. Robert tells me here, as someone from the group B, the second Metcon has been very challenging. It will be interesting to see if the first one has an impact on the second, yes, versus the group being able to go 100% on all Metcons. Yep, that's kind of what I said. But on the other hand, I'm not sure you can actually go 100% on the Metcon if you did a hard strength session before. That's also something to consider, right? It is not exactly just always starting fresh. And maybe doing that second Metcon under fatigue with high lactate levels and also just acidosis in the muscles has a better training effect. Even though you maybe go slower, you don't PR that workout, it doesn't mean the training effects are not there if you give it your all. Right? So that's something that is always interesting to think about. Cool. I'm going to leave it by this. If someone has one more question, just shoot now. And otherwise, thank you for this. Yeah, it's really cool to talk to you guys live. And yeah, see you in the next one. I'm preparing another video on what we did during the Adidas or the Adidas testing with all the elite athletes. I think some very insightful new physiology. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. And yeah, thank you for joining. Ciao, everyone.